Hi everybody, I'm Leah of CJ Drill, and today I'm going to show you how to grout floor tile. Come on in, let me show you some of the things you're going to need. Okay, so what we have here is a sealer, and since we're grouting slate today, you want to seal the slate first before you start to grout. Next thing you want to be mindful of is to have appropriate mixing tools for your grout. Now you can use a bucket trowel, do it by hand, especially if you're going to be mixing small batches. And I don't recommend that you mix a whole lot because you're working small areas at a time. You can use a wand, a mixing wand, and a power drill to mix the grout, but mixing it by hand is fine as well. The next thing I highly recommend is I recommend these. These are knee pads. You're going to be on your knees a lot, and you're going to be so very happy that you purchased a pair before you started to grout. Next, we have the grout itself. And the one thing that I want to say about the grout is you want to mix it to a consistency like toothpaste. And you don't want it to be too thin, and you don't want it to be too dry. So just make certain that you read the manufacturer's instructions before you mix the grout. Now your grouting tools are what's called a trowel float, and you can see the thickness of it. And this is a margin trowel, but it's also a margin trowel float. And again, you can see the thickness of the tool. Okay, so the last three things you want to have are you want to make certain that you have a bucket of clean, cool water. You want to have a sponge. And folks, don't go on the cheap with the sponge. Buy a good sponge. And then the last thing that I would highly recommend is wear gloves. Okay, now make certain that your surface is dry first. Make certain it's clean. Make certain that there's no thin set on the surface of the tile. Now, our tile we've already treated with the sealer. And I will say this, just make certain that you read the manufacturer's instructions before you apply a sealer to the materials that you're using. Now we're going to get started, and this is how you start. You never work a large area. Work a small area, no larger than 3 feet by 3 feet. And that's about an arm's reach. You just want to keep it confined. Okay, so I'm going to just apply my grout to the surface. I'm going to start off with a scoop here. Couple scoops. There we go. Now this is what a 45-degree angle looks like, and you're going to need this to work it really into the joint very well. So let's just start. Now just make certain that you're working your grout diagonally to the joints. That's going to really force that grout down in there. Okay, so now it's time to remove as much surface grout as possible. Those joints are really packed very, very, very well with the grout. Now we just have to take what's resting on the surface off. And how you do that is now it's time to position the float at more of a 90-degree angle. So you want it to look something like this. Try to scrape off as much as you can because it's going to make it easier for you to wipe it off with a sponge. And now just remember to continue to work diagonally against the joints. Now listen, what you can't get up with the big float, use the small float for. Okay, so now it's time to remove the grout on the surface with a sponge. Now one thing you want to make certain of is that you're using a damp sponge, not a wet sponge, because too much water is going to work the grout right out of the joints. So just keep that in mind. Keep your sponge damp, but not wet. Now you're going to have to do this a few times. And just make certain that you have plenty of clean water to keep cleaning your sponge off with. Okay, the surface has been wiped down thoroughly. The grout has, for the most part, set, okay? It's not in any danger, the grout lines aren't in any danger of us disturbing them. Set pretty good. Now it's time to wipe off the haze. There's a little bit of a haze here, and the best way to do that is with a terry cloth towel. So that's what we're going to do. We're just going to start wiping the haze off and really buffing it. Okay, there's just one last step, but you got to wait 24 to 48 hours before you take it, and it's this. You have to seal those grout lines with a sealer, and if you're working with natural stone like slate like we are, well, you have to seal the entire surface again. But again, you got to wait 24 to 48 hours. Just make certain you read the manufacturer's instructions on the sealer that you purchase for your particular tile job. This is Leah saying, you can do this. See you next time.